Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 21st West Fargo City Commission meeting. Would you please join the commission in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Hagemeister, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Jorgensen. Present. Commissioner Zundell.
Here.
Commissioner Dardis.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
The record show all commissioners are present. Our next order of business is item D is to approve the order of the agenda. Commissioners, it has been distributed and you have it in front of you.
Move to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Jorgensen, was it Commissioner Anderson? Had the motion to approve the agenda. Commissioner Jorgensen seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is to approve the minutes of October 7th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Zundell seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of October 7th, 2024 as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item F is the building permits. Again, the report has been distributed and you have it in your packets.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Zundell moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is a consent agenda. We have items A through G.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve the consent agenda items A through G as distributed. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve consent agenda items A through G. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are now in the regular agenda. The first order of business is public comment. Ms. Hagemeister, has there been anybody that signed up for public comment?
I do not.
All right, public comment is closed. We now move on to item number 2, which is a public hearing, A24-27 zoning ordinance amendment to Title IV regarding lot coverage. We'll call on Mr. Aaron Nelson, our Director of Planning for the City of West Fargo. Good evening, Mr. Nelson, and welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, President Dardis and Commissioners. So item 2 is a request for zoning ordinance amendment to Title IV, zoning regulations relating to maximum lot coverage. At the September 16th meeting, upon request from a property owner, the City Commission directed staff to bring forward a zoning ordinance amendment to increase the maximum allowable lot coverage within residential districts. As such, the draft ordinance amendment included in your packet tonight includes a 5% increase to allowable lot coverage in several residential zoning districts, including the RL1A, R1A, R1B, R1, R2, R3, and R5 districts. These districts currently have a maximum lot coverage ranging from 30 to 40%, and so essentially those would bump up to 35 to 45%. A couple of our rural residential districts were not included in this amendment, and neither were the R1S and R1SM residential districts, which already currently have a maximum lot coverage of 45%. The proposed text amendment was recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their October 8th meeting, and the request tonight is to hold a public hearing and to approve the first reading of the proposed ordinance amendment. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have for staff.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Anderson.
I have a couple questions, I guess. Is this a trend that we're seeing kind of nationally where other municipalities are increasing the percentage of coverage on the lot? Or is this just kind of we're doing our own thing? And
Yeah, I guess the specific request was brought up by a specific property owner who was looking to build a new house on a lot. They were running up against the maximum lot coverage, and so looking for options for essentially having a covered patio or a covered porch on their house. They were just needed a couple of more percentage lot coverage, and so that's how this specific request ended up in front of the City Commission on September 16th. But yeah, looking at some of the other jurisdictions, I can't speak to trends, I guess, necessarily across the country or anything like that. What I can say, we did look at several communities within North Dakota, within the region, and what's being proposed is consistent with many other communities. In staff's opinion, it's a very light touch to the ordinance. It's not going to be a drastic change or anything to the maximum lot coverage. Additionally, there's no changes to setbacks or anything like that when it comes to some of the neighborhood characteristics, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Nelson? All right. We now close the regular meeting and we move into a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to A24-27 zoning ordinance amendment to the Title IV regarding lot coverage? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to item number 2, the public hearing of A24-27? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to A24-27, zoning ordinance amendment to Title IV regarding the lot coverage? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. We now move on. Commissioners, this is an actionable item, and this is the first reading, I believe. Mr. Nelson, is that correct?
That's correct.
I'll motion to approve.
Commissioner Jorgensen moves to approve. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve A24-27 zoning ordinance amendment to Title IV regarding lot coverage. And I remind the commissioners that we did have a favorable due pass for our Planning and Advisory Committee. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Item number 4. Item number 3. Getting ahead of myself. A24-26 is zoning ordinance amendment to Title IV regarding landscaping, screening, and outdoor storage. Again, we call on Aaron Nelson, Planning Director, City of West Fargo.
Thank you. So this item was presented to the Commission for a first reading of the ordinance at the last meeting on October 7th, at which time a public hearing was held. Again, this is the request for zoning ordinance amendment to Title IV, zoning regulations relating to landscaping, screening, and outdoor storage. There have been no changes to the ordinance since it was originally presented for approval of first reading, but I'm happy to answer any additional questions if there are any. Otherwise, the request tonight is to approve the second reading and final adoption of the proposed ordinance.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Nelson? Anything? No? It is an actionable item, Commissioners.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Zundell moves to approve the second reading of A24-26, zoning ordinance amendment to Title IV regarding landscaping, screening, and outdoor storage. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is a first reading of Ordinance 1248 regarding to ambulance services. We call on Mr. Dan Fuller, our fire chief, City of West Fargo. Good evening, Chief. Welcome.
Good evening, Commission President Dardis, members of the Commission. Before you is a request for first reading of an ambulance ordinance. This has been in the works for a little while now, part of our strategic plan for the fire department. Supports our commitment number 1, to increase increase the survivability of sudden cardiac arrest, stroke, trauma, preventable loss of life in the city of West Fargo. Helps us with long-term planning for the EMS system in the city. Brings in our partners with the ambulance service along with the fire department in the city, and allows an accountability across the board for the public to understand what the data is regarding ambulance services. The ordinance itself is set forth. Mr. Shockley helped us draft this ordinance with legal and has put forward some time into drafting this and to going through the sections here. The authority to provide ambulance services would come from the city. Agreement required would come from the city. Suspension and revocation of ambulance services would also be sitting with the city commission. And the applicability of operators outside city limits is also included in here. Very similar to the ambulance ordinance that Fargo has established. One of the things I did touch on my memo is the establishment of an ambulance oversight committee, very similar to what Fargo has in place also. And the real point of that is to get the data regarding the ambulance services to the public. It is an essential function of public safety. And just over time, as the city's progressed, it's just one of those things that was left out of the ordinances. So this is really starting to look at how we clean it up also. So, I have any questions? If anyone has any.
Questions for the chief? So ambulance services for the city of West Fargo must be located in the city?
I believe it. Do we put that in there, John?
Mr. Commission President, an ambulance service could be outside of the city limits and operate within the city pursuant to an agreement with the city. And so current ambulance service would have to enter into an agreement with the city to provide ambulance service.
Well, they have to have an agreement with the city, though.
Right.
Very good.
Which
That's what I wanted clarified.
And if I recall the discussions correctly, there was the policy consideration behind that was that you'd have more definition about required response times, levels of service, the different types of trauma and emergency services that would be provided by such a provider.
So as this agreement is written, Chief, have you had any pushback from the community or from any of the contractors?
We have not even talked with how an agreement would look with anyone yet. It's keeping it very blank. Establishing the ordinance is really the enabling thing to go down that road. So we haven't talked to anyone. No.
Very good. I would encourage you to do so.
Yep. Yep.
Any questions, additional questions for the chief?
So this mirrors what.
Commissioner
they have-
Jorgensen.
This mirrors what they have with Fargo and Moorhead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else? Again, this is an actionable item. This is a first reading, Commissioners.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Zundell moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of Ordinance 1248 relating to ambulance services. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is project number 1316, Phase 3, Northside Sanitary Sewer Collector Rehabilitation. We call on Mr. Dan Hansen, the city engineer for the city of West Fargo. The purpose of this discussion, which he'll lead us in, is to accept a bid and award a contract. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. September 3rd, the Commission approved plans and specs. If you recall, this is for some paving and grading up around SA 40 and around the new salt shack. And so we went through the planning part of it, went through the design. Now we've went through the bidding portion of it. There was
Number of bids that were received, Northern Improvement Company was the apparent low bidder with the base bid plus alternates in the amount of $225,964.05. The final bidding engineer's estimate was $249,664 without contingencies. So we do feel that we got favorable bids from a contractor that we've worked with quite a bit in the past. There's a number of attachments to this, but it'd be our recommendation to accept the bid and award the contract to Northern Improvement Company for their bid in the amount of $225,964.05.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Commissioners, any questions for the gentleman?
Just to refresh my
Please,
memory,
Commissioner Olson.
what is this going to be doing, this part of the project covering again?
We installed the new salt shack up on the north side. In the 13-16 Phase 3 portion of the project, there was, when that project was bid out, and if you recall, that was a deep sanitary sewer project, and we were rehabbing SA-40 in that neighborhood. There was some paving that was going to take place on that contract. Between when that contract was bid and later, there was a salt shack that was installed at a different grade than what was on the original plan. So the site needed to be regraded. The decision was made that we were going to remove some of the paving from that project and bid it out separately. So that's what this is. And then also this is taking into consideration the future use of the site as well. So.
I just have one more question.
Please.
On the affidavit of publication, maybe I've missed this before, but the verification is for the state of Pennsylvania, the county of Lancaster. Why? Maybe you can't answer it, but it caught my eye, and it's like, why is this being done there? Unless Mr. Shockley can answer that.
Mr. Commission President,
Please. Mr. Shockley.
Commissioner Olson, that is the affidavit of publication that is coming from the Forum newspaper. And so they're using, my understanding is they're using an affidavit service, and that's where the affidavit service is originating from. That's not the city. The city isn't utilizing that. It's just the affidavit of publication from the newspaper.
Okay.
And I'm thankful Mr. Shockley knew an answer to that because I had no idea until he brought it up. So.
Any additional questions for Mr. Hanson? This is an actionable item.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Zundell seconds. We have a motion and a second to accept project number 1316, Phase 3 for the Northside Sanitary Sewer Collector Rehabilitation as presented by Mr. Hanson for a total of
$225,964.05.
$225,964.05. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Jorgensen.
Will the work be completed this year?
No, it's intended to be done next year.
Great question. Thank you, Commissioner Jorgensen. Any additional questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Sir. Item number 6, City Administrator Report.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Commission President Dardis and Commissioners. We might be on pace for one of our fastest meetings here in a while anyway. So I'll try to be brief. Start off with a couple staffing updates. First, after nearly a couple years worth of looking, we are excited to welcome our new Deputy Inspections Administrator today, Mr. Chad Mertz. He could not be at the meeting tonight, but we've been looking for help in our building inspections office for quite some time, and we were able to find Mr. Mertz. He most recently was employed with JLG Architects, has over 20 years of experience, and again will be joining us as our Deputy Inspections Administrator. So great news there. Next staff update, we have posted our city assessor position, and we are hoping to have interviews with successful candidates on November 1st, so in a couple weeks here. We've invited both Commission President Dardis and Commissioner Anderson to join us in the interview process, but we are getting started with searching for a city assessor. Part of that is relating to, we are having a departure out of that department. Someone is retiring a little ahead of schedule. So we would like to bring in a city assessor to spend some time with our office manager in that department before they retire. So again, interviews are tentatively scheduled for November 1st. So any questions on those first two things before I move forward?
Commissioners? Please continue.
Okay. Work has started on our satellite library location at City Hall. A lot of the demolition is complete. That was a rough few days for some of the staff immediately above that area. But it's progressing quite nicely. We are excited to get that work started. Work on the new commission chambers is also going to be starting here shortly. And again, we are excited to get that underway. Nick Lee has been working with an independent drafting person to put some schematics together. Just shared some of those today, so I hope to make those available for everyone else here shortly, but things are shaping up pretty nice, and we're again excited to get started on that. And speaking of remodeling work, the PD expansion is, for the most part, wrapped up, nearly complete. Assistant Chief Anderson here was just telling me that Chief Nielsen would like to schedule some tours, possibly right before our next City Commission meeting.
Great.
Yes, that'd be fantastic. Things are looking terrific over there. They have been able to utilize the existing space in new ways to provide some comfort and some improvements to the workflow efficiencies, as well as now take over this west side of the building where City Hall used to be. So can't thank them enough for their ingenuity and utilizing the space that we have and making the most out of our taxpayer dollars. So last thing for me, just a heads up that the city will be closed on November 11th in observance of our Veterans Day. So just want to get that out there as early as possible. And that is all I have for you. Again, any questions that I can answer?
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Scott? Looks like we're good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The correspondence that we've received, that is in your packet, regarding the arts partnership that we participate with. Are there any non-agenda items that'd like to come forward? Commissioner Jorgensen.
Last week, Commissioner Anderson and I met with Mr. Anvig and Mr. Jacobson to revisit the sanitation after we changed it in July 1st. It was a very good meeting. Logan was very prepared. It sounds like the amount of bags that are set aside has constantly went down the last 3 months, so it shows that the citizens are adapting to, throwing the bags in there or helping with their neighbors out. As of July 1st, we do not have a follow truck. If there's bulky items, they have a set route, and that has constantly went down. So everything seems to be improving. There's talk about maybe on like Black Friday, seeing how Christmas and Thanksgiving go, if we're going to open the transfer station the day after, because sanitation works anyway, just for people to take their excess garbage to give them an access. But we're taking in more appliances, and we are covering our cost. And the transfer station does a really good job telling the people bringing their appliances in, you'll save money if you take it yourself over to Hazer. So they do give them an option, but they're right there and they get the help. But so far it's working out, and we're at an even cost, so sanitation isn't losing money on taking that in. So they've adapted well, and with that change on the route truck, the route truck gets done earlier now, which allows the two people on that truck the one guy goes and repairs our dumpsters, leak and they fix and repair, and the other guy heads out to the inert landfill and trying to get the pallet wood burner.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if we can get that up and get that going, that's going to bring another source of revenue. So it's been a win-win how they had this figured out and going into it. So I applaud the sanitation and Mr. Anvig for dealing with all this and working through it and making it successful.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything additional?
No.
Great report. Thank you. Does any other commissioner have any non-agenda items they'd like to bring forward at this time? we have any department heads that like to bring anything forward at this time? With that, Commissioner Anderson,
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Second.
we're adjourned. Thank you.